That constant hum of being on, you know, the work emails that just sort of blur into personal time, maybe Slack messages interrupting dinner. We've all felt it, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's become almost standard.
But what's the actual, like, the cost of that blurred boundary? Not just peace of mind, but maybe our thinking, our cognitive function, even how well organizations run. So today, we're doing a deep dive into that hidden price tag, emotional, cognitive, organizational of work interruptions, especially the ones that creep into our personal time.
Yeah.
Our mission really is to unpack how this constant connection impacts our minds, our relationships, even how we perform professionally. And we're basing this on some really insightful sources you shared.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how these different pieces of research, they really illuminate the surprising impacts of something so, well, commonplace in our lives now.
Exactly.
We'll be looking at some psychological studies, some real-world findings, too, that honestly challenge our assumptions about productivity and, maybe just as importantly, rest.
Okay, let's unpack this. When we talk about being, like, pulled back into the hum, it often feels like just an annoyance, maybe.
Right, just part of the day.
But the research suggests it's deeper than that. There was one study, for instance, that really showed how these little interruptions can diminish our experiences right now.
Okay.
So picture this field study. Kushlev and his team did it. University of Virginia. They looked at families at a science museum, usually a place for discovery, connection.
Yeah, it should be engaging.
Exactly. Half the parents were encouraged to check their phones a lot. The other half asked to minimize phone use.
And the difference.
Well, it was pretty telling. The group constantly checking phones. They reported significantly less meaningful experiences and actually increased loneliness during the visit.
Wow, loneliness even, in a shared family activity.
Right. The study's key insight really hit home for me. When you're pulled away by a screen, you're not just missing information, you're missing the experience itself.
That's powerful.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, how many moments are we truly present for? What are we losing in, say, memory retention or just the emotional richness of an experience because of these brief work disruptions?
And what's maybe even more insidious is that it's not just about actively checking the phone. The research suggests the mere presence of our devices might be draining us, which kind of takes this cognitive cost to a whole other level.
Tell me more about that.
Well, there was this really compelling study titled Brain Drain, Ward and colleagues, back in 2017.
Brain drain, okay.
Yeah. And they found that simply having your phone nearby, like on the desk, face down, maybe in your bag even if you weren't using it, weren't even aware of notifications. It significantly reduced cognitive capacity on tasks, testing memory, testing reasoning.
Just by being there, without buzzing or anything?
Exactly. Their specific finding was the mere presence of one's smartphone can reduce available cognitive resources. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, it sort of suggests our brains are constantly allocating resources, almost subconsciously, to monitor that device, even when we're not looking at it.
Like a background process is always running.
Precisely. So even those tiny minor work interruptions or just the potential for one leaves this kind of mental trace. It diminishes our ability to be fully present, to process things deeply.
That idea that just having the phone nearby is draining our brains, that's pretty unsettling. How exactly is our brain monitoring it? And what are the maybe longer-term effects of that constant low-level alert?
Those are really good questions. The study suggests it's about attentional resources being implicitly drawn away.
And if it hits us individually like that, what's the ripple effect on, say, whole organizations? Because this isn't just a personal cost, right?
Not at all.
This kind of chronic stress, often linked to feeling like you can never disconnect from work, well, it translates directly into a systemic inefficiency for companies. There was a 2021 report, American Psychological Association, found a really striking statistic. Chronic stress leads to an estimated 32 lost productivity days per employee per year.
32 days. That's huge.
Yeah. Multiply that across a whole workforce.
Yeah.
The financial cost, the human cost, it becomes staggering.
It really raises an important question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Are the very things we think make us more productive, like being always available, actually having the opposite effect on a larger scale?
Seems like it.
By blurring that boundary between work and life, organizations might be inadvertently undermining, well, long-term performance, morale, definitely employee retention.
It feels counterintuitive, though. You'd think being responsive is always good.
Right. It seems productive in the short term, that immediate response. But The pressure to be constantly available, it can lead to burnout, reduced quality, and ultimately it becomes a net negative for the organization's overall health and output.
So why does this always-on culture persist, do you think, even with data like this?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Part habit, part expectation, maybe part technology design.
Makes sense. Okay, so if constant connection is so costly, individually and for the whole system, what's a practical solution? Maybe something unexpected.
Well, that brings us to a really interesting 2021 paper, Roganizada and Bones. It was published in Organizational Behavior and Human Decision Processes.
Okay, what did they find?
Something quite counterintuitive, actually. They looked at professionals who proactively asked for more time on deadlines.
Ah, the dreaded extension request.
Yeah.
You usually assume that looks bad, right? Like you couldn't handle it.
That's the common assumption. But they found the opposite. These professionals weren't penalized. In fact, they were often viewed as more competent.
More competent, seriously.
Yes, more competent, more professional, and even more committed than those who just rushed to meet maybe unrealistic timelines.
Wow. That completely flips the script on what we usually think.
It absolutely does. And what's really compelling here is that it's not seen as being less dedicated. It's framed as skilled time negotiation.
Right, managing expectations proactively.
Exactly. The research suggests that encouraging people to advocate for boundaries, for flexible timelines when needed, it doesn't just protect their well-being.
Which is important enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it also improves how others perceive their professionalism and their commitment. The key takeaway from their research was powerful. We chronically underestimate others' willingness to grant us more time. When asked, they usually say yes.
We just assume they'll say no or think less of us.
Precisely. But the data suggests otherwise. It's about reframing the request not as a sign of weakness, but as a strategic move to deliver better quality work and maintain, sustainable performance over time.
Okay, so bringing this all back together then. What this deep dive seems to reveal is that these work interruptions, they aren't just annoying little things.
No, not at all.
They're cognitively expensive, they're emotionally draining, and actually economically inefficient too.
And the concise, impactful conclusion that really sums it up from the source material is clear. Protecting your time is not indulgent. It's essential.
Not indulgent, essential. I like that. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. What's one small step you could maybe take this week, just one, to intentionally disconnect for a specific period? Could be short, could be longer. And what impact do you think that might have on your experience of that actual time? And maybe even how you approach your work afterwards, something to mull over.